Oh, hello, everyone, and welcome to our show. This is the Rebel Preacher, and today I have David Ben Shul from Utah and Tom, our Time with Tom. And today's topic, we are going to talk about pain. We're going to talk about loneliness. We're going to talk about the hard knocks on this journey that we are on spiritually, outside of community, or when you're maybe breaking through dogma and things of that nature. So hang on, and we'll be right with you. Thank you. And of course, that is from Tom and his family. Beautiful thing they've done there. A beautiful song that Tom got in a dream. That's what it was, actually.
Yeah.
So, but Tom, we know you. Say hello to everybody.
Hello, hello, hello.
That was real deep. Thank you. And David Ben Shul, we know you, but go ahead and give us a little introduction.
Okay, hello, I'm Dave Ben Shul
Thank you
from
so much, David.
utom.org. That's utom.org. And just to deal with these two guys, I got my whiskey.
Well,
In
hi.
fact, I got the whole bottle.
I know he's going to need it by the time this show
Gonna
is
need it.
over.
Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
so we're going to start out, and this is one of my favorite little books right here.
Ah,
And it starts out here. And a woman spoke, saying, "Tell us of pain." And he said, "Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. Even as the stone of the fruit must break, that its heart may stand in the sun, so must you know pain. And could you keep your heart in wonder at the daily miracles of your life, your pain would not seem less wondrous than your joy. And you would accept the seasons of your heart, even as you have always accepted the seasons that pass over your fields. And you would watch with sincerity through the winters of your grief. Much of your pain is self chosen. It is bitter poison by which a physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. For his hand, though heavy and hard, is guided by the tender hand of unseen. And the cup he brings, though it burns your lips, he has fashioned of clay which the potter has moistened with his own sacred tears. So I wanted to start out there because many times our perception of pain comes from the ego of self hurt or woe is me and gloom, despair, agony on me, deep, dark depression. Oh, I'll stop. But it deals more with the ego of our hurt within our own self sometimes. And we miss the picture, I believe, sometimes that pain and suffering and maybe loneliness and things of this nature actually are really doing more for us than we think sometimes, and we don't give it credit for, because sometimes I believe there are seasons and times in life that we must go through, because if life was perfect and we all had the perfect community we lived in, whether Jews, Christian, Islam, I don't care what you are, and we never looked outside of that box, or we never went beyond those boundaries, we would miss most of the journey that we're on. And I know David and I have actually done a show on this before in the past on loneliness and things of this nature. So, that is on one of the old Utah videos. But David, add a little bit more to this journey of hard knocks that we go through sometimes within our spiritual, within physical, within every concept of life. We seem to handle or have to come in contact with this pain issue that we're bringing up tonight.
Right, yes. And let me help my pain for a moment.
Yes.
Jeez.
Oh, that was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Glad I got a whole bottle.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, you're right. The ego plays a part. As you know, Mike, I started, and Tom too, I started a new series of videos where I deal with the soul and how the soul connects to the mind and the body, and the differences between that and how they're supposed to come together. Now, what's very interesting, like you mentioned depression, and we do get depressed sometimes when we start going through struggles and difficulties, because what's happening is there's a realization up here that's trying to filter down here,
Yeah, yeah.
and there's a resistance to that. And sometimes, we have to be literally cracked open before
Yeah.
we start receiving that that upper soul down to us, the upper mind to our mind.
Right.
Because we got to break out of we have to go through a paradigm shift. And if we resist that paradigm shift, it becomes very difficult for us. It's painful. It's suffering. We try to come up with psychological ways to fool ourselves, to ignore the changes that we need to make.
Very good. Tom?
Oh, yeah. I think what I've been thinking about today, and then even now as we're talking, in that poem that you read, I was struck with the phrase "breaking of the shell."
Right.
Breaking of the shell. And I know that all throughout the course of my life, up until quite a few years ago, that I never really could bring together why it was that I was suffering what I was suffering, or what I was going through, and why can't it always be just kind of smooth sailing? And one of the things that I've come to realize is that the meaning of the shell and the purpose of the shell and what we go through sometimes isn't discovered immediately. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes it takes a lifetime. But when the light breaks through and you go from one season to another, then you begin to look back and you can say, oh, gee whiz, now I know why now I know why I've suffered the way I've suffered, or why I've experienced what I've experienced, no matter how crappy it is, no matter how hard the shell was. And so the cracking of the shell and the breaking of the shell to let the light come out has had to take place, and is still taking place today, even now, at this particular time. But I do know that it's all within the shell. It's all within the shell, which really is not a negative thing. It actually is a protective thing. It's a protective to bring forth the light that's within.
So what you're implying, Tom, is that there's a constant level of pain or change. If we don't change, there's pain. And this is a continuous process, day in, day out, week after week, month after month, year after year.
Mm-hmm. Well, and not only that, but the tendency is to judge the shell. Is it too hard? Well, sometimes if it is too hard, then it can stifle the life that's within. But I have found that actually the hardness of the shell is really all a part of allowing to protect the light that is within, to allow it to come forth and to bring forth that which is within. So, to judge the shell, well, I suppose that's a part of it too, judging the shell. But it really is a part of the package to enough shell there to allow what's in to grow, but not too much shell, so that you actually kill and stifle the life that is developing within.
It's interesting, Tom, how you say shell. Now, a shell in Hebrew would be a klippah. Mm-hmm. And Mike can tell you, when we talk about klippahs, that's a shell around, or a hard shell around something that's good, and it keeps it from changing. It's a barrier, and we all have this barrier around us. Typically, the ego that's fighting the change. It's fighting the opportunities that we have. Oh, that's a good idea. It's actually, instead of pain, it could be an opportunity too.
The interesting thing about that too is when you're going through it, when you're experiencing the difficulties and the issues, you're not really aware of the significance of the shell there. One judges it from a limited perspective, you'd have to be a spiritual masochist to say, "Hey, God, beat me up." Spank me, hit me.
I love this.
And so I for one, I know people who have had that. Well, God, just beat me up, make me, do this and do that. And boy, I don't say that anymore. I just say, okay, well, I'm not going to like this, but that's part of the shell that needs to be broken. And the thing is you don't really realize it when you're there, because you're so engaged in the moment,
right,
that it's hard to take a step and to look at the whole picture of things, to get a whole picture view of things. What's going on in the upper soul, like you were saying, David. And then down below here, I'm wondering, what in the heck is going on here? Why this? I don't know about you guys. I've had lots of issues in life that things have gotten flushed, that have been a shell, that have prohibited maturity and growth.
Right.
And it's kind of like, the thing that you expect the most is God's promise in something. Might be your Isaac, and all of a sudden he says, hey, offer it up. So then you offer it up. You mean, kill this thing, the thing that's closest to me, that's come forth from the context of my life.
Right.
And offer it up, let it go. Those are tough experiences. I wouldn't, I don't ask for these things. I'm not a spiritual masochist, but wow, when they come, they come.
Well, I was thinking also too about our former faith, that we were once in at one time. It's woe is me, a sinner. I deserve to suffer for this, for what I've done. And I'm with you, Tom. I'm glad I'm past that, because nobody could live up to something of that. You couldn't live in that too long without having mental issues sometimes, thinking you are a horrible person and some of the freedom that I found out when David was teaching on what really happened in the Garden of Eden. It changes your whole process. Your mind's like, this was not as bad as we're meant to believe. This was actually one of the greatest events in history, according to the Scripture, and we've missed it. And we've been living under a mean God. Yeah, I hate you because you sinned. Although He created us knowing that is exactly what we were going to do. I can't stand you. You must do this. You must do that. But that offered freedom. We realize what really happened there and what Eve actually did for us. It was a freedom. So you're right. There are things that we hang on to through teaching, through dogma, through life, family. I know each one of y'all also know when you have children, you hang on to that all the time. You want them to be a certain way. You want them, you wish you have your concept of the way they should be, and they don't live up to that way sometimes. And you put that on your shoulder, but you don't have to. You can release that and know that God's in charge no matter what happens, what direction, whatever they may go. God is in control there, and it takes all the pressure off of me. And it was a breaking, though. It was a breaking to take that control that I had in that, or thought I had.
And I think that's why it's important to understand that when we take a look at Abraham, for instance, Abraham was told that he was a righteous man, a man of faith, because of his faith in God.
Right.
But people don't realize that the word for faith is emunah, and it's not a blind faith. It's a faith that's gained through process of aligning oneself with the Creator.
Right.
And he had a difficult life too. If you really look at his life, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
Right.
And he left it all.
Right.
And he ended up having to go into the wilderness and really go into himself and find the Creator within.
Right.
Yeah.
So, there is that side where the more we change, the more opportunity there is for hope. That's a good point. There is an opportunity for pain, but with that pain comes hope.
Right.
If we're willing to grasp onto it.
So to get us lined up here, there may be those listening in the future or whatever who are going through hard times because they're not being accepted the way they think they should. They're trying to join a particular movement, group, dogma, whatever, it doesn't matter. And the door seems to be shutting on them all the time, or they're trying to reach out to certain teachers on YouTube, as David and I both know this so well. And you just get no response whatsoever. And how do we deal with people like ourselves, who all three of us have had the hard knocks spiritually, and really have not found a home except within the Creator? We don't have a community per se, except with us. We're definitely a community. But what do you say to people that are finding it really aggravating to the point that they just want to give up completely on this whole thing of God because they are experiencing this pain, this breakiness that we're talking about right now?
Tom, I guess your turn.
Oh, okay. Well, I feel like there's always someone out there who has been where you're at. And I remember a story on West Wing. I don't know if I've shared this with you guys, but it was a story of a couple of firefighters, and they went to a fire, and one guy fell into a pit, and he couldn't get out. So then his best friend comes, and he says, "Well," he said, the guy in the pit said to his best friend, "Save yourself, get out of here. There's no way out." And his best friend looked at him, and all of a sudden heard a boom, and his best friend was laying right next, sitting right next to him. And he says to him, "What?"
Tom, you froze.
Oh, right when he's at the
I know.
punchline, no less.
I'm waiting for him to jump into the hole here, and the big.
Oh no! Of all times to end it. All right. Well, till he comes back.
Yeah.
I'll add in my point. Okay, so people, you're right. There's nothing new under the sun, as what you call it, Colette, Ecclesiastes
Right.
tells us. There's nothing new under the sun. No one's experienced anything new. So it's not like we're alone. It's really perspective. I have one boy who constantly gets hard knocks, but he does it to himself. And we have to ask ourselves whoops, we lost him.
Yeah, probably come back in.
Yeah. So we have to ask ourselves, is it trouble we're causing itself? Because it's not always God who's causing the trouble. So to speak, trouble.
Yeah, it's us.
It's us. It's us that are causing the trouble. Our perspective, like you were just talking about, where thanks to the official narrative that Christianity has devised, we look at the story of Adam and Eve as being a negative thing,
right?
Not a positive thing.
It's positive. But
when you look at positive, it's a whole different narrative that is that's been produced. He's back.
Right,
let me just finish up, Tom.
We're down in the hole, and we hear.
Oh yeah.
Pump.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
He jumped in a hole.
Yeah.
He jumped. His best friend jumped in the hole right next to him, and he said, "What are you doing in here?" He said, "I told you there's no way out." He says, he looked at his friend. He said, "Don't worry about it. I've been here before. I know how to get out." And what I say with all that is, there's always someone out there that really knows how to help you to get out, because they've been there themselves, and they can comfort you with the same comfort by which you've been comforted. So how in the heck, we want to be relating to substantial people who have some gut in them, so substantial people who know what it's like to be where you've been.
Right.
And I've had that. You don't have that with a whole lot of people, but there always is a special person or two or three or four that really can be there with you during these times.
Right. So you're saying that, again, there's a community involved, and there's people who've been there before. We should be seeking advice from others.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And that brings up a good point, because here I'm talking about the soul again. One level of soul, kind of called kaya, is where we get kai and kayam from, life.
Life.
That's at a spiritual level where we're all connected. It's like a universal soul.
Right.
And we're meant to help each other. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, a lot of people like to isolate themselves. I mean, I see with dogs, animals, a dog, they'll go hide themselves in the corner somewhere and die rather than be with a pack. And I think that's a problem we have. We don't like to. We're afraid of hurt. We don't want to open up to people, and we got to find that trusted friend that we can open up to.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know, David, when we did that course, you did that course with me on.
Life coaching course.
Thank you. At that
yes,
time,
I provide those too.
Well, at that time, my wife and I and family were going through some hard knocks, really, but as we've talked about, it was mostly on us, bad decisions and stuff. And as we started doing this course every week, at first I'm kind of like, this is the biggest waste of damn time I've ever been. But then I started, actually, what David was saying, I started utilizing, as he said, Amuna, compared to blind faith. As I started receiving the instruction with this course and actually doing the exercises that he had me do, list 5 things, then it was 10 things, and what I can change within a certain amount of time. it focused me. And then my pain wasn't as bad no more because I started realizing that most of the problems I was having in my life were my own stupidity, bad spending, bad decisions, letting people run over me and stuff of this nature. And David, we listed it down to 5 things that I
Right,
wanted to see
right.
changed within 3 years. I think it was 2 years
Yeah,
or 3 years.
yeah.
Well, 3 of them got done within a year because we just really focused on things, got it fixed, and moved out. And I'm still utilizing this
Well,
formula in my life today. It's still
right.
growing, and it's helping me deal with stupidity, pain the ego. It's helping me look at it in a different aspects. What I'm trying to say.
Exactly. But what did you do? You sat back and you identified the
Yeah.
problem. And
Yes.
once you identified the problem, you broke it down and created a plan and you went for
Right.
it. And you're right. It's like literally like overnight you called me up. Oh, by the way, we're going to buy a house.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
I know. We were just
What?
talking. You
Where did this
couldn't
come from?
qualify for a house.
Yeah. But it was you because because you weren't satisfied with the status quo.
No.
You knew there had to be a better way.
Right.
And because of that, and that, that brings up a point. When you deal with life coaching, it's typically mind and body.
Right.
And your body is at odds with your mind is at odds with your body, and your emotions are in between. And it stresses your mind, sometimes it stresses your body, sometimes it stresses both.
Right.
And you had this issue. And then there's the soul aspect where it's telling you you want more. You want more. There is more. You have more capability. You're more than the box you put yourself into, which is what you did. You put yourself in a box, and then you realize, oh, I can break down these walls and plan things greater than I thought I could accomplish.
Right. And that's, I'm Tom, I'll give you a second, but I have to finish what he's saying here, because the things that we had to change, that we were like so persecuted, woe is me, was stupid stuff that we just had to stop, my wife and I, and look at and just do some little changing. And within a matter of time, it totally turned around. And I
Right.
still use that today, even with religion. And David can attest to this to me also, is I always felt that I needed to fit in within Judaism or whatever, and I'm to the point now, I don't care. I love them, Christians. I don't care who you are. I don't care. I can look, but I'm in for a deeper journey than just that box. There's nothing wrong with that box. I borrow from that box.
Yeah.
We do Shabbos.
Right.
We do the festivals. I am proud of all of that. But the fact of the matter is that's not my ceiling. My ceiling is way above that. But I use that box that I'm in. So what I'm trying to say about the whole coaching thing that you did was it took it out of the realm of ego, of woe is me, to, like you said, it was in my hands then to make the changes.
Right.
And as Tom said
Right.
earlier, when I made the changes, it flowed so well after that. But it
And they
was
were only
hard in the beginning.
and there were only little tweaks you had to make too.
Little things.
A lot of the essence was already there. You just
Yeah.
had to tweak, unhook a few things and tweak your thinking and your approach to things. Right.
So the biggest tip that you gave me during that time was it was the exercise we did of things that we enjoy. We enjoy that helps motivate us, basically. And mine, of course, at the time was I had a 2-acre yard. I loved cutting the grass, and I loved working in the dirt. And as I started doing that, and then we had the chickens and everything, I was able to see things through that eye, through the nature of what was going on around me, of how chickens and animals and, going out into the woods, these things became part of my scripture understanding. And I could say, well, if this bird isn't worried about this, he's not worried about wintertime coming. He's gonna have a plan, So I think sometimes is we are our biggest obstacle in our life sometimes. I believe that. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, what I was thinking here is a couple of days ago in the morning, I usually get up between 4 and 5 and spend some time. And it's always really good. But I looked at the scripture in Genesis. It was like I could see it. And I know that you can, perhaps my interpretation is pretty well out there, but it really meant something to me is that Adam had a side of him that was removed called Eve. And I felt that God was saying to me, he said, there's a side of you that you've looked for, that there's an opposition. And I thought, well, what are you saying? He says, well, all of your life you've experienced an opposition. You've experienced a side of you that has been meant to be joined to you to produce something beautiful. And I thought, so I was thinking, well, then all of the circumstances and the difficulties that I've went through have really been a calling card. They've been masks of another side of me that's meant to be joined to me in order to produce this new child, this new being, this new presentation. And I look back and I thought about, many years ago, probably 17 years ago or so, 18 years ago, I went through the bottom dropped out. I lost everything. And I was ready to end my life. And I was downstairs. I had a shotgun. I had the shotgun in my mouth, and I was ready to just end it all. And I had a cell phone at that time, and I had it sitting down. And all of a sudden, the cell phone goes off, and I know it's my daughter. And I felt this urge, you need to ask her, see if she's okay. So I picked up the phone, and I put it up, and I've got the shotgun in the other hand. She said, Dad, I don't know what you're doing right now, but your grandchildren need you. Wow. And, sometimes it takes these events, these situations where you die to everything. Everything is ended. Right. In order to realize that this was a part of that side that needed to come together, that I needed to bring this thing together in order to bring in this union, this new who I really was. And the other half of me now, I don't judge circumstances like that anymore. I just say, well, perhaps this is another half of me. Perhaps this is a side of me that I need to get some type of a perspective and bring to birth something here, something new that I've been missing, that I've been lacking. So I look in my life and I think, well, gee whiz, I've lacked a lot of things. I can't do a lot of things. Well, for example, my wife, wow, she can do just about anything. I'm lucky if I can pound a nail. I mean, it's that bad. I mean, my neighbor comes over and he says to me, gee whiz, you got it pretty good. Your wife does everything. And I said, yeah, you're jealous. Eat your heart out, buddy, And so, but I've always judged that. And felt, gee, and yet my wife, she completes me. And she's just another side of that thing that had to deal with an insecurity of something in me. Because I can do other things that she can't do. Not many, but other things.
Don't let her hear that.
Oh, she's listening, by the way.
Oh, no.
But the point is no one to blame. This is really a part of Hashem's work in our heart and our life, is to bring that other side of things into our lives in order to bring to birth this child, this new thing, this who we really are. And you grow and develop, like David has been counseling you and working with you, and the real you now has come out. A side of you that was lost, just lost and was brought together. So I'll be quiet now.
No one said I was happy with Mike's change. No. You're presuming a lot, Tom. Presuming a lot. Well, let me add my part in, because I think this is great, because now we're starting to give the side of ourselves. We don't live in a perfect universe. I don't. I may be smiling here, I may be happy looking, I may look healthy. The reality is that's not my whole life. I'm watching myself go blind, and it's devastating to me. When I was a young boy, when I'm talking about young boy, I mean like 8 years old or whatever, I didn't have any friends. No one wanted to be with me. Everyone thought I was bizarre. And it's not that I was bizarre, it's that in a mental capacity, I was ahead of a lot of people my age. I was better off with adults. But, I didn't have any friends. And I remember telling my mom, I says, I had no friends. I'm not happy. I said, why was I ever born? There's no use for me. Yeah. And my mother came up to me and says, no, that's not true. Why you don't have any, you don't have friends? And I said, no, why? And she said, because you're special. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, so they can't relate with me. Oh, they're the stupid people. Okay. No, this is not the Big Bang Theory with Sheldon. you know.
I love it.
But I at that age, I've learned, okay, God gave me a certain endowment. He gives everyone a certain endowment. It's not that
Yeah.
I'm any better or less than the next person. It's just
Mhm.
I have a different perspective from the next person. And so I've learned that everyone is special in their own way.
Mhm.
And that has helped me to pull through a lot of devastating times, loss of friends, loss of relatives, my father passing, and we were estranged. And when he passed, it hurt because it's like there's no reconciliation, and that
Mhm.
that went deep into my psyche. That went deep
Mhm.
inside of me. But in the long run, it ended up making me a better person. Not that I would go through it again,
Mhm.
but
Right.
it ended up making me a better person. So, I'm still having struggles even today. My one boy went to Nashville to try his hand there at music. He's done it here in New Jersey, but now he's moved down there to try his hand, because he's a big fish in a small lake here. So he's trying to now he's a little fish in a very big lake.
Right.
And he's always been a type person to rise up, but it hurts that he's not here. I worry about him and stuff like that. So, struggles all around, but these struggles also help me to help others.
That's right.
Can I pick up on that?
Sure.
Go for it.
I feel like I'm supposed to tell this story. When I grew up, I was, both physically and psychologically abused from my dad. He was a war hero. He flew like 30 some missions over Germany, and Jimmy Stewart was his squad leader. And, when he came back from the war, 19 years old, he, went in 19 and come out when he was in his 20s. And he was really battle torn. And he brought that into the relationship with us kids. And I know he loved us, but he just couldn't get through the pain of the rejection of the war. His dad left him when he would just basically abandoned him and the rest of his siblings when he was young. And so he really had some tensions and some issues. But the whole time that I was growing up, you're never good enough, no good SOB, you'll never amount to anything. And these patterns and these things just kept going over and over and over and over in my mind. And up until about 8 years ago, I was sitting with a friend of mine. I had helped him shovel off his roof. And I'm sitting there and we're talking about our childhood and being brought up in the experiences that we experienced. And I was feeling release. And out of the blue, I heard my dad's voice tell me, Tom, thank you. Thank you for forgiving me. Thank you for pursuing the healing in your own heart and life, because not only are you healing yourself, but you're healing me. And you're healing all of our generations that have come before us. And that was just as clear as bell. And the tears are coming down my face. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh. And there was a joining together. There was a joining with my dad then. And it may sound crazy, it may sound mystical, but I'm telling you, I don't give a dang, because it was real. And I heard his voice. Beautiful, beautiful. And who knows what we go through, what that's going to heal, not just in ourselves, but in our others, in our families and stuff, so that same type of thing isn't perpetuated. David has talked about this with me here. He's got some really good insight that have been helpful as well. So just thought I'd pop that in there.
Yeah, that's not an unusual concept. It's right there in the Ten Commandments. People don't realize it. Our correction, and it corrects our forefathers and our foremothers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
That's awesome. Because we think about, that if we live right, that our children and stuff will be blessed. Well, maybe so, but the fact that we're correcting the past also makes it a more special event, that there's family members that we've had die of tragic deaths and stuff like that, but through our lives that we are actually bringing them elevation is a very powerful concept. Very powerful.
And how can you live that rightness unless you're actually in that experience and going through the experience of rightness and being straightened as a branch? If the branch is, life does that. Life does that to you. It's the school of hard knocks. It's has a way of getting through to you.
We're each given this very specific task to conquer.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I can't conquer what my neighbor's problems are.
Right.
No, I had to conquer my problem.
Right.
And by me correcting my backyard ends up improving the community.
Well, another
And I've
thing.
got this.
Go ahead, Tom.
I was going to say, David, I want you to know this, that you may be going by physically, but you are seeing through me, because the things that you put into my heart and life through the hours and the times that you put in, I'm telling you, I'm seeing through your eyes, and I want to thank you. I just want to thank you for that.
Another thing too, regionally, we're talking about like past faults, and I'm from the South, especially Alabama, and there was a lot of racial tension and stuff, especially in the 60s and the 50s and stuff like that. And my family, well, anyway, I have felt through my elevation because I've never felt that. I've always escaped that thing because I've never seen that issue. I thought it was stupid from the very beginning. And I've always felt that the way I live my life and friend everybody and don't try not to judge anybody through any characteristic like that I am actually elevating the past mistakes of my family, or trying to anyway. Because down here in the South, I don't know about the North. It was a very bad thing that our forefathers did. And both sides too. It wasn't just we get blamed a lot, but it was both sides really. But I really feel like that as we grow spiritually and we bring on that divine nature, that we bring on that divinity that we were created in, that we are able to elevate that past. And I don't even think about that stuff no more. And I hear it today and I'm kind of like, oh my God, can you not get past this stupidity?
Well, what's interesting is Tom and I were recently talking about how we have a very judgmental side to ourselves and a very loving, giving, acceptance side. But the reality is neither is good. And example is, you cannot like somebody to the point you put them in isolation and people die in isolation.
Yes.
Or you can have like a mother's boy, so loved, or fatal attraction, so loved that the other can't let go of them, so that they can grow. So it's neither good, but we had to create an attraction between the two so that we brought them into a balance. So you're right. I know the blacks had their racial issues. I've seen it. I've talked to some of my friends, and they gave me insights that I never knew existed. And also on my side, I know people being prejudiced, but the reality is they both are.
Yeah.
Both sides are. You're right. So they needed, a cracker, and I love the Jeffersons, the Oreo cookie, but all that humor, helped us to realize, wow, we got to come together and join. That's the only way. If we stay in our own camps, we're never going to get over our problems. But I think for a large part, I think the United States has gotten over it for a large part.
I do too.
Not entirely, but the thing is, we've improved. There's still room for improvement, but we've improved so much in the last 200 years. It's phenomenal.
Well, David, I even think about with you and I also in our journey within our faith of Judaism and our general, who we are and stuff of that nature, of how who we are so different sometimes than who our normal people are sometimes, that we break boundaries sometimes that most Jewish people will never break because they cannot identify with that other side. They can't identify with living outside of a community and stuff like that. And I think sometimes this is a big handicap for a lot of people, is they're not able to reach out to that one soul that you're talking about. Because if it's not Jewish, if it's not Christian, or if it's not Muslim, and I'm not talking about dogma, I'm talking about upbringing, they are not able to reach out to extend that olive branch, where me and you over the last 14 years have been through hell and back. But the fact of the matter is we were always able to take that peace
olive branch,
olive
branch,
exactly, that most of our people could not ever do because they can't see beyond the scope of who they are.
Right.
And the pain, and we went through hell, David.
Oh, I know.
Through hell.
Oh my gosh, we were in tears half the time.
Oh,
I know. It was just awful.
Trying to reach out to people.
Yeah, exactly. And it reminds me of a conversation Tom and I just had, where I think it was last week, where you and I read chapter 1 of John to you
Yeah,
from a
yeah,
Hebrew
yeah.
perspective,
Yep, yep, yeah.
and what we got out of it
Oh,
is
awesome.
it was beautiful. It was
Awesome.
beautiful,
Right.
and I know he'll never look at it the same way, but I used that material as proof that we can still join.
Yes.
I used
That's right.
the New Testament as a tool,
Right.
and it
Yeah, it's
worked, right,
there.
Tom? I
It's
mean,
there.
you can come.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
It's there.
absolutely.
Even
Absolutely.
David, you
Absolutely.
mentioned in the past too, and I know we got to get going here for long because we're getting over 40 minutes.
Uh
But
oh.
you talked about the old when you used to work with that Hindu person, right? And you were able to identify with him and use his spirituality and your spirituality, and y'all had great conversations, and you were able to use that to reach across the aisle and help somebody else in that
Well,
aspect, where most people would be like,
you
I ain't talking to them.
you just identified the biggest struggle, hard knocks I've ever had in my life, and that was
Oh.
to make a distinction between spiritual and religion.
Oh, yes.
Take that
Oh,
box of
yeah.
religion and tear it
Yep.
apart,
Yep.
and make
Yep.
instead of a noun, make a verb.
Right. And it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Love is a verb.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a verb.
Just
And
don't
you're
get caught.
absolutely-
Just
yeah,
don't get caught.
no, don't get caught.
It's good
All
to
right.
love your neighbor. Just don't get caught.
At that note,
Oh, wow.
I think, guys, it's time we give our final responses here. So, Tom, I'm going to start with you. So, Hard Knocks advice.
Can I go last?
David, go ahead.
Well, I kind of gave mine. Let me see. Give me a word, and I'll go off of that. Just give me an idea what you think a good ending would be, and then I'll try to come up with something. Mike,
Soul.
talk to Mike.
Soul.
Soul. Okay.
Tie it into your teaching with you, Tom.
Right,
What's
right.
going on right now?
You give me inspirations for more
Yes.
shows.
Yes.
Yeah, we think in terms of body and mind. We think that we're a body with a soul. And when we get stuck with the body and the mind, our eyes are focused downwards.
Right.
And we tend to ignore our upper mind, our soul, our connection to the Creator. That's where our image is. It's coming down. We got to open the channel up. But we got to understand we're not a body, mind with a soul, but rather we're a soul with a mind and a body. And so we got to give priority to the soul. And when we do that, that helps us with our struggles. That helps us with the hard knocks. And that turns these struggles, these sufferings, these hard knocks into lessons that we can use not only to help ourselves, but to help others. Wow. And I'm going to end there.
Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to let Tom have the last one. I'm going to say, if you can picture a dam that's holding back the water, and usually when a dam starts to weaken and you start seeing the cracks, you start seeing the bricks and stuff start to move. But once it breaks, that water flows so easy. And sometimes the pain in our life that we're going through, as Tom and David have both said so well, when we move out of the way, we release the ego. And as Tom said, we let it go. We sacrifice it and let it go. We will find that flow. And I want to do this so much because David knows what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry. It's
yes, it's this way. Spiritually speaking, the flow.
It's a private joke.
It is. The flow has to go, literally. And if there's any flow, stop the flow, you're going to have pain, and you've got to remove that pain before the flow to go. So just if you picture that dam collapsing and you see that water coming through, the same thing in your life with pain. And we're not saying it's going to be a beautiful bed of roses. There's pain always, but I promise you it'll get better. Go ahead, Tom.
There's a phrase that comes to me, and I don't know where it's found. You guys know that better than me, but and a child shall lead them.
Yes.
And a child shall lead them. And I think about the childlike simplicity in my relationship with you guys, I mean, how we met, I just was just like a child, just discovering what life is about. And I met two wonderful people because of that. And we've been able to really connect in heart as friends.
Yes.
And so I just think that childlike simplicity in relationship with each other and in spirituality is going to be really significant. And I think that a child will lead them. Maybe it's a corporate child in the area of spirituality to set aside all the differences and whether you're white, black, green, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's a childlike simplicity.
That's wonderful. And the thing is everything's meant to be. And as we talked about in our last show, Tom, about the gospel of Mary Magdalene, that one soul. And as David talks about plenty of times in his Kabbalistic understanding of the true Israel, which is not what we think it is.
It's a soul.
It's a soul.
Beautiful.
It's a soul that we have to have each other. We have to. And it has to fit together. And I think that's the main thing. And it's really important to have people when you're going through stuff. It really is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is.
I appreciate both of you. David Ben Shul, www.utom.org. Check out his YouTube channel. And
you'll find out more about what we're talking about with the soul.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And also there's other videos. Do you still got your old videos on there too?
I had the videos from my visit to the 300-acre ranch in Tennessee.
Right. Yes.
I've got those in there still.
Watch all of those and subscribe to his channel, please. We're going to do this try to every week, and we're going to come up with different topics that we hope that will help everybody. So till next time, you have a great week. And David, thank you. Tom, always thank you. And y'all have a great week. And we thank you so much. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.